Good morning. My name is Marie-Bénédicte Dembour, and today I'm going to talk to you about the requirements of the PhD. I am talking about the PhD in general. I've checked with colleagues of mine who are in the hard sciences, and they've told me that what I'm going to say is basically applicable for about 95%. So really, wherever you're doing a PhD, probably most of what I'm going to tell you applies, but my own area of expertise is from either the social sciences or the humanities, as well as, of course, law. So what is a PhD for? And what's the criterion to pass a PhD? Well, to pass a PhD, about wherever you are in the world, I mean, even though the words might be a little bit different, what is important is that you are assessed to have made an original and significant contribution to knowledge. What does that require? It requires to have one research question, and ideally it will be only one main question rather than two or three. If you can bring it down to one, that's much better. And you will have brought compelling findings to this question. How are you going to do that? You need to have a coherent scheme, so there needs to be coherence. And you need to have a thesis. You need to have an argument. Maybe in the sciences, you will need to demonstrate your hypothesis. That will require you to have gone through a literature review. You need to show that you know what has been done before you bring your contribution. You will probably have collected data, and you will have made analysis on this data and on the literature review. So if you are collecting original data, you need to have proper research methods, which, at least in the social sciences, will mean, and in some hard sciences as well, to have considered the ethics of your research methods. For your analysis, you will need to apply logic. Everything will have to be clear. That's the second box, in a sense, in the second corner. These are the corners are things which apply throughout your PhD. So we already have now coherence and clarity. That means that the language you use needs to be clear, accessible, correct, and precise. In a sense, all along, I am talking about the ideal. I mean, obviously, if there are some incorrection in the language, it doesn't mean that you're going to fail. But what I am talking to you is what you aspire to manage to bring together. And now I don't, oh yeah. And whatever you do, you always, let me go back because I see I've lost a few things. So for your analysis, you have language, which is correct and precise. And in your analysis, you are going to have to use concepts. So either concepts you borrow from the literature or concepts that you yourself devise. Your analysis need to be relevant to your thesis, and there needs to be, you use the data which is relevant. You do not work with everything you have collected. In your thesis, you just bring what is relevant, and you need to justify why it is relevant and what you have selected. Justification is just as important as coherence and clarity. And you will need to have some kind of triangulation as well, so that the data and the analysis look like they are solid. You cannot just make a quote-unquote fancy link. The logic also means, the requirement of logic also means that there can be no contradiction in your thesis. If there is a contradiction, either you explain it so that it's not a real contradiction, it might be an exception, or you get rid of the contradiction, but you cannot leave it like this unobserved. And everything has to be considered, in the sense that you cannot suddenly decide, oh, I'm not going to, this doesn't fit, so I'm not going to pay attention to it. So everything needs to be considered, and that means that you need to be comprehensive. Now, by comprehensive, it doesn't mean that you can do everything, and you will need to decide what are the limits of your thesis, but within what you have chosen, it needs to be properly justified, and it needs to be coherent. So within the parameters that you fix yourself, you cannot then arbitrarily revise the boundaries of what you're looking at. Now, importantly, in terms of how you present things, there shouldn't be repetition. And how you, because repetition is a waste of words and a waste of time. So you say everything only once. How do you manage to do that? By having a very good structure to your thesis. And that means that you have to have a very good table of contents, a table of contents which almost immediately speaks to itself and makes clear what your argument is going to be and how it's going to unfold. You need a good title for your thesis, and a title which reflects your research question and your findings and your thesis. So everything needs to be coherent again. As you're going to use a language, you're going to have some kind of narrative to explain your thesis and your main argument. And within your thesis, you're going to need signposting. So in a sense, you take the reader by the hand and you explain to the reader what you're going to do right from the start. So in a thesis, introductions are very, very important. But then all along, you introduce what you're going to do next. And that is what we also call having signposting. Within your narrative, it's probably going to be enhanced by having quotes that you have found either in your literature review or in your data, which in a sense enlivens your text and makes it more pertinent. And I'm saying that because ideally, you're going to use a language which is not only correct and precise, as we have said, but which is also evocative and elegant and a pleasure to read. In a language which is accessible, because you are hoping to contribute to knowledge in a way that most people can benefit from. What you also need throughout your thesis are references to the literature review you have done and to what you are using. And that means also having a list of bibliography and possibly abbreviations. And then you may have a few other things. So this is, as I said, that's the requirement, that's how your thesis is going to be assessed by the examiners. Is it bringing an original and significant contribution to knowledge? If yes, it's because it's coherent, you've justified what you were doing, you are comprehensive within the limits of what you are doing, and you are clear all along. So I wish you the best in getting on with your thesis.